Hello and welcome to this lecture on the data type. Data types are important because, as explained, every variable must have a data type. A data type in programming is a classification that specifies which type of value a variable can hold, and they help ensure that the application behaves correctly and that data is handled properly. For example, if a variable is declared as a string, it can only hold a sequence of characters. The int data type can hold a number, and finally, the bool data type has only two states, true or false. Okay, in C#, there are two ways to define the type of a variable, explicitly and implicitly. For example, a string variable based on explicit type should be like this, and based on the implicit type, it's gonna be like this. Now, let's dive into VS Code and declare some variables based on these ways. Okay, in explicit type, we specify the type of the variable when declaring it. For example, to store a number in a variable, we go for int age equal 28. Here, int is the explicit type of the variable age. But to store a number in a variable based on implicit type, we go for var floor equal 4. In implicit type, the type of a variable is inferred by the C# compiler based on the initial value, and this is where the var keyword comes in. This keyword allows you to declare a variable without explicitly specifying its type. Notice that var keyword can only be used for variables. In this example, the compiler checks the initial value of the variable, and since its value is a number, it determines the type of the variable as an int. In other words, the C# compiler detects the data type based on the value we give to a variable. You have to know that when a variable is declared with var keyword, it must be initialized. For example, here, our code is highlighted in red. So, let's assign a value to the variable and get rid of this error. Additionally, when we declare a variable with var keyword and assign a value to it, the C# compiler infers the type of a variable at compile time, and this type cannot be changed. For instance, as you can see, the C# compiler recognizes the type of age variable as an int. But in the next line, we tried to assign a string value to an int variable, so obviously we'll be greeted with an error. Now, can you guess what is the type of these variables? Okay, based on the initial values, the first variable is determined as a string, the second one as an int, and the last one as a bool. Alright, now let's talk about how data types are classified in C#. In C#, there are two main categories of data types: value types and reference types. These two categories are also divided into different categories, which we'll talk about in the future. Okay, the main difference between value and reference types are how they are stored in memory. Value types store their value directly in memory. For example, int and bool are value type. But reference types store a reference to their value in memory. For example, a string is a reference type. If you've been confused, don't worry, it's pretty normal. We'll talk about value and reference types and their categories in detail during this course and the intermediate course. Alright, see you in the next lecture.